Automatic reference counting is new in iOS 5, and it promises to make our lives as developers so much easier. Let's see how. What is automatic reference counting? It is automatic Objective-C memory management, which brings along with it simplified retain-release programming, which means less code to write, and simplified testing. It can coexist with retain-release code, and it can be retrofitted to existing applications. Now, the fact that it can coexist with retain-release code is useful for the simple reason that you may be using third-party libraries with lots of retain-release code within them, or some of your old code may still have retain-release code, and you may not be willing to change it just yet. You can start now with automatic reference counting, or ARC, and convert older code as you need to, assuming it's not full of leaks, in which case you'll want to work on it now. How do you start a new project to use automatic reference counting? Well, you simply check the Use Automatic Reference Counting flag when creating a new project. How does it work, though? Well, it's not garbage collection, but rather an automated pre-compiler step which adds retain, release, and auto-release to your code after the event, which means you no longer have to. When working on ARC to implement it within Xcode and within the compilers, the Apple compiler people looked at variable usage and defined and identified 4 types. We have strong references. We have auto-releasing references, unsafe references, and weak references. We'll take a look at each of those in turn and see how they've been catered for with ARC. Strong references are the default for all variables. Basically, a retain property. So before ARC, we were used to coding retain within a property definition, and now we'll code strong. By coding strong, we're telling the compiler that this is a strong reference, and the compiler will initialize it to nil and manage it and release it correctly as necessary. Again, we don't need to then code release code for these new strong variable properties. Auto-releasing references, well, they describe out parameters, and they're not generally used by us. They're really sort of stack only. Auto-releasing is added and managed automatically. Unsafe references are very common. They're traditional variables or assigned properties. They're not initialized or restricted in any way. And we can tell the compiler now that these are unsafe references by using the _unsafe_unretained qualifier. The compiler is aware that these may leave hanging references and treats them as unsafe. Weak references are an alternative to unsafe references. And read and write operations are managed by the runtime, and these weak defined references are automatically set to nil when the object starts deallocation. So to make use of weak references, you use the _weak qualifier on a definition. Let's look at some best practices for automatic reference counting. Once we start to use it and we start to use strong qualifiers, for example, we should never call retain release or auto release again. We should use Objective-C objects instead of C structs. Now, generally we should use Objective-C objects anyway, because C structs are not so easy for the compiler to manage. Another reason why we don't want to use C structs now, we're using ARC, is because C structs may contain code which uses malloc or releases, and there's no way that ARC can know about this. We're undoing all the goodness of using ARC if we use C structs. Stick to using Objective-C objects. Do not use NS Auto Release Pool. And to get around the use of NS Auto Release Pool, there's a new @Auto Release Pool statement added to Objective-C, which the compiler will then understand and deal with. NS Auto Release Pool is not an Objective-C object, and hence is difficult for the compiler to deal with. So you use the new @Auto Release Pool statement. Well, before, if you take a look at your main.m file in one of your projects, you'll notice you'll have this code in there. And this is within the main method. We have NS auto release pool, pool equals NS auto release pool alloc in it, define a return value, release the pool, and return the return value. Full of potential nightmares as far as memory management is concerned, and now an awful lot easier to write, and everything's dealt with by the compiler properly. Blocks are also impacted by ARC. Before, if you look at this Grand Central Dispatch example, to return a block we would first have to copy it and then explicitly auto-release it. As they're objects, ARC has been designed to work properly with them, and they're now much easier to write, and all of the auto-releasing and tidying up is done for you. So you think, okay, all of this is being done for me. Does it affect performance? Well, no, because it's not a runtime step, it's a pre-compiler step. ARC carries out various operations at pre-compilation to tell a new improved runtime how to deal with various variables and to ensure that memory is freed up correctly. So these improvements, for example, object retain and release is 2.5 times faster. At auto release pool is 6 times faster than NS auto release pool. The Object-C message send, which is basically the integral messaging within Objective-C, and hence rather important, is 33% faster. But this is a speed increase that goes pretty much across the board. And the retain auto-release returns are up to 20 times faster. Now, the compiler and the new runtime work together to ensure that objects are not even added to an auto-release pool, meaning retain auto-release returns, i.e. things are not added to the auto-release pool so they don't have to be retained and auto-released, making these speed gains of 20 times possible. So ARC is a lot easier. You'll write code how you'd expect. It just works. And we don't have to write deallocs again. No more deallocs because they're all dealt with for us by the compiler. Retrofitting is also catered for and is a relatively straightforward process. You can open an existing project and you can choose Edit and Refactor, convert to Objective-C ARC, and you'll be taken through a process which actually guides you through, shows you the before and after stages, which is also an extremely useful process for understanding how things are converted from the old way to ARC. And at the end, you can save all of your code and everything has been updated. So there you have it. There's no excuse. You can start using ARC in your new projects. You can retrofit it in existing projects, and you can avoid having to code deallocs and make your coding lives a lot easier from now on.